It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, KCAL 9 presents the Dodgers and the Angels. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Saturday night to you, wherever you may be. Game 2 of the 3-game series. Interesting thing about baseball, you really can't figure it out going in. Look at last night. The Dodgers struggling, the Angels atop the heap. Angels, best road club in the major leagues. They have an 11-game winner, Joe Saunders, on the mound. Dodgers are under 500 against left-handers. Chan Ho Park is 2-2, and what happens? Dodgers win it 6-0. So much for numbers. So try to apply these, and they don't make any sense either. Jered Weaver is 7-7. Chad Billingsley is 6-7. Billingsley is 0-1 against the Angels, and for Jered Weaver, he is 3-0 against the Dodgers. Beat them last year and twice before. So it's Weaver and Billingsley, game 2 of the 3-game series, and we'll have it all coming up right after this. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota, moving forward. By Jack in the Box, where we don't make it till you order it. By Volvo, who believes that life is better lived together. Volvo for life. And by Southwest Airlines, you're now free to be more productive. Visit southwest.com today. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Saturday night to you, wherever you may be. Another beautiful summer's evening as we slowly work our way to the end of June, and the prospects of another good ball game as the Dodgers host the Angels. Dodgers winning last night to balance their books. Each team has won 2, and tonight and tomorrow afternoon will conclude the year as far as their work against each other. For the Angels, they are 9-7 against the National League. For the Dodgers, they are 4-9 against the American League. By the way, Arizona 6-9 against the American League, but Arizona is playing a National League team, the Florida Marlins, and Arizona has just beat the Marlins 6-2 as Brandon Webb picked up his 12th win. Let's take a look now at the lineup for the visiting Angels. And it'll be Maicia Izturis opening up at third, followed by Eric Aybar at short and Garrett Anderson in left. Vladimir Guerrero with a 16-game hitting streak is in right field. Torrey Hunter is in center. Casey Kotchman at first base. Howie Kendrick at second. Jeff Mathis behind the plate, and Jered Weaver on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Chad Billingsley with a record of 6-7. He is 0-1 against the Angels. They beat him 2 years ago. He has won his last 2, and for the second time in his career, he's trying to win 3 in a row. Coming off a very tough game. You may remember in the heat of the 22nd of June, high temperatures, and he was out there in the daytime against the Cleveland Indians. He went 5 innings. He was in constant trouble. He made 108 pitches in the 5 innings, but as true a competitor as he is, he picked up the victory. So Billingsley now working against Maicia, the switch hitter, hitting left-handed, waiting at the plate, and batting .266. He takes the first one low, ball 1. Izturis has been bothered with a tight hamstring in his right leg, which is why he didn't start last night. And Izturis, the half-brother of Cesar Izturis, and Billingsley comes back 1-0 and gets it in there for a strike, and the count 1-1. So Izturis trying to get things started on a beautiful evening, 72 degrees at the first pitch. The 1-1 pitch, Izturis swings and a drive to right, going back to the track as Ethier to haul it in front of the scoreboard. So Izturis, long fly ball to right, 1 away. Let's take a look at the Dodgers with the leather, and it's Loney and Kent, Baroa and DeWitt, the outfield of Pierre, Kemp and Ethier, and the battery of Billingsley and Martin. Eric Aybar coming up, another switch hitter, and Aybar, as he checks in last night, had a single and a double, made a throwing error which helped the Dodgers. It contributed 2 runs in the 5th inning last night. Eric Wading has a look at a pitch off the plate. Ball 1, 1-0. Ibar with Garrett Anderson on deck. Now Billingsley, very deliberate, comes back 1-0 with a fastball outside. Ball 2, hitting 92 in the gun. And of course, at 7:12 on a summer's evening, the lights are not taking effect, so you think that fastball will look even faster at this stage of the evening. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Fastball in there for a strike. 2-1. That was the old quote of Gene Mauch. He's throwing a radio ball. You can hear it, but you can't see it. And as far as the Angels last night, they were looking and listening to a lot of radio balls. The pitch in for a strike, and the count 2-2. If you remember last night, Broxton struck out 3 in a row. Strider struck out 3 in a row. And the middle out in the 7th inning. Falkenberg struck out a man. The 2-2 pitch on the way is swung on, grounded to Kent. Jeff is up with it easily. He flips over to Loney, and we have 2 down in the 1st inning. Chan Ho Park. What a game he turned in last night. 91 pitches, 6 innings, no runs, 4 hits, no walks. Chan Ho had 1 3-ball count last night and struck out 7. He was brilliant. All the Dodger pitchers were last night. They struck out 12 Angels, and that was somewhat of a different game. Angels not accustomed to that at all, and that was one of the things Mike Scioscia talked about today. Garrett Anderson tries to golf a pitch down, comes up empty. 0-1 the count. Anderson single to center in the 1st inning. Might be hitting .254 against the league, but hitting over .300 against the Dodgers in his career. Swings, doesn't get a breaking ball, and the count 0-2. He has 9 home runs in the interleague battles between the Angels and the Dodgers. So no balls and 2 strikes to Garrett Anderson. Billingsley drops another breaking ball low. 1-2 the count. 2 down, 1st inning, no score. Glorious evening, bright blue sky overhead. Billingsley looks down the barrel to get a sign from Russell Martin. Now the 1-2 pitch on the way. Ground ball wide at first to Loney. Billingsley comes over for the feed, and that's out. So the Angels go 1-2-3. Billingsley jogs off, and at the end of half an inning, no score. Chad Billingsley made 12 pitches, retired the Angels in order. We go to the bottom of the 1st, and let's take a look at Mike's lineup defensively. First, the Dodgers, Juan Pierre, Andre Ethier, and Russell Martin. Then you have Jeff Kent, James Loney, and Matt Kemp, Blake DeWitt, Angel Baroa, and Chad Billingsley. And trying to stop them would be Jared Weaver, 6'7", 210-pounder. He will be 26 years old in October. Born in Northridge, lives in Simi Valley, and went to Long Beach State. Broke in with a bang with the Angels back in 2006. Not only did he wind up 11-2, he started that year 9-0. And Juan Pierre opens it up and takes ball 1. Weaver, with 9 wins and no losses, opening up his career, that tied an American League rookie record. Pierre, meanwhile, hits a fly ball to center. Torrey Hunter, with 7 Gold Gloves, makes the catch, and just like that, 1 away. But take a look now at Mike's defense. It's Kochman and Kendrick, Ibar and Desturis, Anderson, Hunter, and Guerrero, with Weaver and Mathis the battery. Andre Ethier coming up, and it was Andre who broke the game open last night as he hit a 3-run home run in the 7th inning, his 7th of the year. He has 32 runs batted in, batting .279. Whitey Ford, back in 1950, started his career 9-0, so that's the great mark that Jared Weaver tied in 2006. Interesting thing about Weaver, usually pitchers and even hitters are that way. A big difference between day and night. The 1-0 pitch on the way, fastball strike, 1-1. In day games, Weaver 4 wins, no losses, earned run average 2.5. In night games, 3-7, ERA over 5. The pitch drops a little low, 2-1 to count. Well, at this hour, what would you say? It's somewhere between day and night for sure. So Weaver with one away on a 72-degree sunset hour, and the 2-1 pitch just off the plate, ball 3. 3-1 to count. One thing you might expect in this game tonight, and that would be stolen bases, because runners have taken advantage of both Weaver and Billingsley. 3-1 pitch is outside, ball 4. So going to first base is Ethier. Of course, Ethier is not a particular base stealer. He has stolen 2 and he's been caught once. And Russell Martin coming up. So far, 18 attempts to steal a base against Weaver, and the league is successful 15 out of 18. Chad Billingsley, 6 attempts, 5 successful. So the percentage is the same, but 3 times as many base runners have attempted to steal against Weaver. So here is Russell Martin, got the Dodgers off on the right foot last night. A 427-foot home run to left field. Throw to first. Ethier back on the bag. Just to continue the thought, and of course the Dodgers could very well play hit and run with Russell Martin. So Ethier off the bag. Weaver a high set. Young right-hander comes to the plate. Fastball whipped low, ball 1. Weaver's troubles with base stealers since 2006. He is 4th worst in all of baseball. Of course, his main competitors for this dubious distinction are down south. The San Diego Padres has a pitching staff that is liable to be declared missing because of stolen bases. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Weaver delivers, jumps that in there. 1 ball and 1 strike. Chris Young, the big right-hander, 6'10". 95% of the time base runners are successful against him. Greg Maddux, 89% successful. Jake Peavy, the same as Weaver, 85%. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Ethier a cautious lead. Weaver set, ready, deals. Martin takes low, ball 2, 2-1. Weaver really moves that left shoulder. When he comes out of his stretch, it looks like he's going to do a complete pirouette towards second base. That left shoulder really swings around towards third base as he tries to collect his body and then bring it to the plate. Now let's see, 2-1. They could very well play hit and run. Ethier off the bag. He's going, and it's foul back. So that was an ideal combination. A 2-1 count, a contact hitter at the plate, and a pitcher whose Achilles heel is the stolen base. So Torrey put it on, and Martin fouled it off. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ethier looking across the diamond at Larry Boa to see if the play might be put on again. Hitting back of Martin is Jeff Kent. Weaver bent at the waist and knees, long hair down close to his shoulders. Now he straightens up. The 2-2 pitch coming up. Jared ready. Martin looks, and it's low. Well, they played hit and run 2-1. It figures then they would play run and hit. And just in case you don't know, run and hit, the hitter is certainly not obligated to swing at ball 4. Where hit and run, he figures to go after almost anything. So 3-2 will look for Ethier to go. Let's see. Weaver out of a stretch, looks over his shoulder, still set, very deliberate. There goes Ethier, and the pitch is swung on and fouled away. So as night follows day, so the 2-1 hit and run is followed by the run and hit 3-2. And again, Martin looks down to Boa to see if the play is on. No score, bottom of the first inning. Tomorrow afternoon, the concluding game, John Lackey and Derek Lowe. Lackey is 5-1 with a rather unbelievable earned run average of 1.6. Derek Lowe watching, making his mental notes, and he'll be out there tomorrow. 3-2 the count, and Martin asking for time, and it's granted by Jeff Nelson. Jeff, the plate umpire, has been umpiring in the big league for 10 years. He was behind the plate when Mark McGwire hit his 500th career home run. He worked the game where Rickey Henderson collected his 3,000th hit. 3-2 the count. There goes Ethier. The pitch is swung on, grounded to third. Up with it there is Turris, makes the play. And down to second base, staying out of the double play, is Andre Ethier.
Batting fourth, second baseman, number
So
12,
2 down, a runner
Jeff
at second base, and Jeff Kent coming up. Jeff Kent last night walked, struck out, had a scoring fly ball, and then singled. Hitting .253 with 8 home runs, 34 runs batted in. Jeff also made a fine play last night in the 5th inning on a ball hit by Casey Kotchman to the hole. And Kent, diving to his left, smothered it, got up and threw him out. So Jeff waiting. Weaver hides the ball back of the right hip now, straightens up, a look back at Ethier. Now the right-handed delivers, fastball, low ball 1. There was a pitcher years ago who eventually went on to Congress named Jim Bunning. And somebody once described Jim Bunning in his pitching delivery like a man falling out of a tree. Well, when you watch Weaver, there's an awful lot of elbows and arms and shoulders, not so much in a stretch, but boy, certainly when he's in a windup. He is 7-7, but 3-0 against the Dodgers. Beat them earlier this year in May, beat them twice last year. Weaver again bending at 6'7". He has to bend to look down to his catcher. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's outside, ball 2. You are extremely conscious of Weaver's arms, almost like a hook and ladder extension. Boy, those arms really straighten up, and he comes flying off. Mike Butcher, alongside Mike Scioscia in the Angel dugout, watching the youngster. Now Weaver straightens up. Ethier at second, 2 down, 1st inning, no score. Weaver delivers and gets a fastball in there, and the count 2-1. Dodgers get the news that Arizona got well tonight behind Brandon Webb. They beat the Marlins 6-2. So the Dodgers must win to remain 2.5 back. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way, and Kent takes in the dirt. Nice block by Jeff Mathis. Talking about winning, this is a big game for either team. If the Dodgers win tonight, it will mean they have won the series, which means that the Angels have won 10 of the last 12 interleague series they've played. And the last time they've lost a road series, you have to go back to May the 9th when they lost a series in Tampa Bay. 3-1 pitch to Jeff Kent. You know he's swinging if he likes the location. Weaver delivers, swung on, fouled away. 3-2 the count. Jeff Kent has done very well, as you know. He has power, he has extra base hits, he has had an incredible career. And with all of it, he has only struck out 30 times this year. So Jeff back up 3-2. James Loney on deck. No score, 1st inning. Weaver making a lot of pitches as he looks in to get a sign. And the 3-2 pitch to Martin, then the 3-2 pitch to Kent is swung on, foul tipped, and held by Jeff Mathis. So no runs, no hits, a man left at second. Weaver walks off, and Vlad will be leading off. No score, going to the second. Jared Weaver had a tough 1st inning. He not only made 20 pitches, he was flirting with trouble. He did not have a first pitch strike, and he had 3 3-ball counts, but he got away with it. And now Vladimir Guerrero, followed by Torrey Hunter and Casey Kotchman, and a breaking ball is hit to the hole. Nice pick at third by DeWitt to throw him out. Blake DeWitt, going in the hole on the left side, takes a hit away from Guerrero, who has a 16-game hitting streak, kept alive last night by a little ground ball to third. This time DeWitt stays in his way, and 1 out. Fine play by the young Dodger third baseman, and Torii Hunter coming up. So Blake DeWitt back in the lineup with a right-hander going, and already lets the people know he's in there. Torii Hunter hitting .279, 9 home runs, 37 runs batted in. Torii takes a strike, 0-1. Hunter with 7 Gold Gloves. A remarkable story. We talked about it last night briefly. It's just amazing what can happen in a person's life. That's a strike, 0-2. Torii at one time as a rookie in the Minnesota Twins organization did not have rent money and lived in his car for a month. The strike 2 pitch outside, and as you probably know, with the Angels he signed a rather unbelievable 5-year deal worth almost all the land west of the Mississippi. Here's the 1-2 count to Torii Hunter. 1 out, second inning, no score. Billingsley ready, deals on the inside corner, strike 3. Torii can't believe it, and after a few words to plate umpire Jeff Nelson, he walks away. 2 down. For Chad Billingsley, he is a strikeout pitcher. In fact, you remember he had 12 strikeouts earlier this year in a game against Arizona. Torii thinking that pitch was very low and out of the zone. So 2 down. 96 strikeouts now for Billingsley, and the left-hand hitting Casey Kotchman takes a strike. 0-1 the count. Kotchman, 24 extra base hits and 15 strikeouts. In fact, he has really been a fine young floor player ever since he came up. He's hitting .297. He has 8 home runs, 38 runs batted in. 1-1 pitch on the way. Casey swings, whacks it foul down the right field line. Kotchman is 6'3" and .215. On the first day of the Angels' current road trip, that would be the 20th of June at Philadelphia, Casey made 2 errors. His first error breaking a 77-game errorless streak. So he helps you in every way. Billingsley, both feet on the rubber, looks down to get a sign. Now Chad turns, ready, and the 1-2 pitch swung on and missed, and down he goes. So Billingsley on the beam, strikes out 2. He's retired 6 in a row, and at the end of an inning and a half, no score. Bottom of the second inning, no score in the ball game. The Dodgers and Angels. It'll be James Loney, Matt Kemp, and Blake DeWitt. The Dodgers are celebrating the 70s this weekend, today and tomorrow, honoring heroes from the 70s, names that I'm sure will forever be written in the Dodger history book. Loney one day will find himself in the same category, but right now, fine young hitter, batting .306 and takes a strike. Prior to tonight's game, the Dodgers held a special 70s meet and greet luncheon, and there were so many names from the past. Here's the strike 1 pitch on the way. Loney pops it in the air, foul out of play. Tommy Lasorda, and then there was Garvey, Russell, Royce, Say, Monday, Castillo, Downing, Law, Grabarkowitz, Hale, Lacey, Paciorek, Thomas, Lamb, and Culver. And they are here tonight, and they'll be here again tomorrow. 0-2 the count to James Loney. Weaver's next pitch, a high fastball, a check swing and no swing, says Jim Joyce. So Loney moving right up in the high rent district during the month of June, and the 1-2 pitch low. 2-2 the count. James a half a dozen home runs, 40 runs batted in, has had a couple of good streaks. He had a 15-game streak and he had a 12-game hitting streak. In last night's ball game, Loney was 1 for 3. Weaver into the windup, and the 2-2 pitch on the way is a fastball fouled away upstairs off to the left, and the count stays 2-2. Been a good month for Loney, and for Weaver trying to get a tough hitter out to start the second inning. Loney hitting .381 in the month of June. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way, and James swings a hopper just foul outside of the right field line, down in the corner. Adrian Johnson right there waving foul as he stands on the chalk. He had the best view of anybody in the ballpark. That was coming right at him. So Loney drills it, but just pulled it foul by inches and down the line. Very light breeze, barely a zephyr stirring the flags from left to right. Weaver looks in to get a sign. Loney waiting. Now Jared ready, and his 2-2 pitch coming up, and Loney swings and misses at what might have been out of the strike zone, and down he goes. So Weaver picks up a K. That would be his second, and the batter is the center fielder for the Dodgers. That'd be Matt Kemp. So Matt Kemp checking in with one out, bases empty, no score, bottom of the second inning. Interesting how the years go flying by as Weaver ready and delivers, and Kemp takes a strike. We were talking about the players from the 70s. One of them, Ron Cey, here taking in the ball game. When Jared Weaver was growing up, he was a big Dodger fan. The pitch is swung on and fouled away. And the first autograph he ever got from a player, Ron Cey. Jared at the time was a catcher, imagining that someday he'd be Mike Scioscia, not realizing he would wind up pitching for Mike. So Jared ready in the strike 2 pitch, and Kemp has a look at strike 3 call. So that's 3 strikeouts in a row now for Jared Weaver, taking a page out of the Dodger book as Kemp walks away. For Weaver, his strikeout to walk ratio is not 3-1, but it is about 2.5 to 1 for sure. He now has 73 strikeouts. The high man, that would be Irvin Santana with 99. So the pitch now to the plate to Blake DeWitt, and that's outside, ball 1, 1-0. DeWitt made his presence known, taking a base hit away from Vladimir Guerrero in the second inning. Weaver comes right back 1-0, and it's swung on and missed, and the count 1-1. So Jared Weaver, and that's Jared, not Jared. He spells his name J-E-R-E-D. The 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's outside, ball 2. Jared named after both his uncle Jerry and his late grandfather Edwin. So put it all together, Jared, and of course the brother of Jeff Weaver. Now the 2-1 pitch coming up. Weaver delivers, and it's a fastball in there, throwing a nice easy 92, and a 2-ball 2-strike count with 2 down. DeWitt back up, hitting .268. Weaver ready now in the 2-2 pitch, and it swung on a drive to center, a step in, but then Hunter goes back and makes the catch on the track. So a long fly ball to center. Dodgers go in order, and at the end of second, no score. Sheer delight on the face of a youngster. Hard to say whether mom or dad or the baby is happier. There's a lot going on there. On the scoreboard, no score as we go to the third inning with Howie Kendrick, then Jeff Mathis and Jared Weaver. Into the windup goes Billingsley, fastball strike. You know what's interesting? You'd have to go back to the 6th inning last night, and with 1 out, Eric Ibar doubled. And the Angels have not been heard from since. Pitch outside. In other words, they have gone 0 for 17 with 10 strikeouts. And so Mike Scioscia trying to figure out a way to go to the whip as Billingsley comes back, 1 ball 1 strike, and it swung on and missed. Billingsley made only 9 pitches in the second inning, which is certainly a relief from what happened to him against Cleveland. So Kendrick hitting .308, 15 runs batted in, and the pitch outside. They call him Howie, but the players call him Truck. It happened when he was playing under Bud Black, who was the pitching coach of the Angels, and Black asked him one day, "Have you ever heard of Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations?" And Howie said, "Oh, sure." "You ever hear the song Keep Truckin'?" Well, that's where he got the name, and Truck proceeds to get a base hit to break that string of 0 for 17. So Howie Kendrick, a single to center, and the batter will be Jeff Mathis. So Billingsley gives up his first hit. Kendrick, not much of a base stealer. He's 3 for 6. And here is Mathis. Jeff hitting .215. He has 5 home runs, 19 runs batted in. Catcher has done a solid job, and of course he is working for a former big league catcher. And of course Scioscia knows just how important that is, to have a great relationship between the pitcher and his catcher. So Mathis waiting. Angel pitchers have an ERA of 3.3 while he's behind the plate. Billingsley ready. Another look over at Kendrick. Now comes to the plate, and Mathis takes low. 1 ball and no strikes to Jeff Mathis. Jared Weaver on deck. Dino Abell, who at one time in the Dodger organization coaches at third for the Angels, and over at first, former Dodgers shortstop Alfredo Griffin. 1 ball and no strikes. Throw over there, not in time. And of course, if you go in the Angel dugout, there's Mike Scioscia, then there's Ron Renicky, his bench coach, there's Mickey Hatcher, and you get the idea. It's almost a Dodger alumni, and it has certainly paid off. There are 3.5 games in front of Oakland. 1 ball and no strikes, the count to Mathis. Billingsley, a high setup around the collarbone. Another throw to first. Kendrick diving back to the bag. So Chad Billingsley trying to balance his books, trying to win his 3rd in a row. Right-hander out of a stretch. Another look over at Kendricks, and the 1-0 pitch coming up, and that's a fastball low and away. Ball 2, 2-0 the count. Angels have won 9 of their last 12. They've split the 4 with the Dodgers. Angels, the best road team in the majors, 26-14. Even though they lost last night, they've won 10 of the last 13. 2-0 the count to Mathis, and the pitch is swung on and missed. 2-1. Chad Billingsley brings a lot of heat to the dance, and with 2 strikeouts so far, and he has a 2-1 count now on Mathis. Dodgers have part of a big league club heading for Las Vegas. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way. Mathis takes low. Ball 3, 3-1. Rafael Furcal, Nomar Garciaparra, and outfielder Andruw Jones. They're scheduled to join the Las Vegas 51s on Monday. The 51s host the Salt Lake Bees. Oddly enough, the Salt Lake Bees, the AAA farm club of the Angels. Now the 3-1 pitch is taken for a strike. 3-2 as Mathis tries to go to first base and is called back. Catchers rarely argue with the plate umpire because they'd like to buy a few pitches their way when they're squatting behind the plate. So 3-2 the count. We'll see what they do with Kendrick. Mathis, right-hand batter. Out of a stretch goes Billingsley. A look at Kendrick. How he goes. Pitch is taken for ball 4. The throw down was needless to make. On ball 4, there are runners at first and second and nobody out. Say, friends, you know, tomorrow the Dodgers and Angels and all kids 14 and under receive a voucher that'll get them into Universal Studios Hollywood free with a paid adult ticket. To double your fun, visit Dodgers.com or call 866-DODGERS. 2 on, nobody out. Bunt situation, you would think. Weaver is 0 for 2. Though you'd expect that 6'7", he's up there to bunt, and he shows bunt right away. Billingsley's fastball is missed at the plate, and the count 0-1. No balls and 1 strike. In his career, Jered Weaver has 1 hit in 6 at-bats, but he has never had a sacrifice. Though he's looking now at Dino Abell being asked to do something he's never been able to do. 2 on, nobody out. 3rd inning, no score. Weaver again showing bunt. Billingsley deals, and the bunt is missed. Fouled at the plate, actually, and the count 0-2. So Billingsley, certainly a strikeout pitcher, and trying to do exactly that to Weaver and prevent an advancement. Dino Abell going through the motion, so you'd figure the bunt will still be on, certainly with an American League pitcher. And Jered shows as he grips the bat that he's going to be up there to bunt. Now Billingsley ready. Strike 2 pitch is a swing and a miss. So I guess Weaver had as much chance of hitting it swinging as he was bunting, and down he goes. 1 away. At the last minute, taking the bat back, hoping to get lucky, swung at a pitch in the dirt. So 1 away. Runners at 1st and 2nd, and now Mysier Izturis, who flied to right field in the 1st inning, coming up, and he flied deep to right. Ethier had to go in front of the scoreboard to handle it. A very good clutch hitter, batting .265, 3 home runs, 27 runs batted in, and he has a look at ball 1. We say he's clutch. Last year, with runners in scoring position, Izturis hit .406, and in his career with runners in scoring position, he's batting .304. So he's tough. Switch hitter, batting left-handed. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. Fastball low, ball 2. Dodgers and Angels. Law locked in, no score, 3rd inning, and Billingsley now fighting it a little bit. Billingsley has struck out with 3 tonight. He has struck out 98. He has also walked 43. So 2 on a base hit and a walk. Billingsley again out of his stretch, ready and deals, and the pitch is a high strike, and the count 2-1. Izturis is 5'8", about 165 pounds. Taking his last name Izturis, he comes up with a nickname Stu. Now the 2-1 pitch on the way. Billingsley check, runners hold, and the pitch in the dirt. Nice save by Martin. Getting out of the way was plate umpire Jeff Nelson. So Billingsley, who is always fighting his pitch count, it's part of the young 23-year-old's battle in this game. He certainly has the stuff. Last time out, 108 pitches in 5 innings, 106 in 6, 101 in 7, and let's see, 3-1. Swung on and popped up into shallow center. A trio of Dodgers, and it's going to be Berroa making the catch, and that was probably the toughest play out there. Matt Kemp could have just put that thing in his hip pocket, and for some reason Berroa went out and had to match it while turning and going away. But it was an easy play for Matt Kemp, but Berroa stayed with it and made the catch. So 2 down. That was certainly not the infield fly rule. There was no reasonable expectancy that he would catch it. Well, in talking about Billingsley's pitch count, he had made 21 pitches in the first 2 innings. That's great. But now this will be his 20th pitch of the inning to Erick Aybar. Chad ready and deals. Drops a good curveball in there for a strike, and the count 0-1. So Erick Aybar. Brother Willie played briefly for the Dodgers. Aybar, 24 years old, from Bani in the Dominican Republic. No balls and 1 strike. Billingsley again ready. Back he comes. Aybar, ground ball to Kent. Jeff is up with it, makes the play, and Billingsley is out of the jam. So the Angels come up empty despite having first and second and nobody out. And at the end of 2.5 innings, no score.
Angel Berroa.
Bottom of the 3rd inning, no score in the ball game. Angel Berroa, Chad Billingsley, and then Juan Pierre. So Jered Weaver, who has retired the last 5 in a row, has struck out 3, comes with a breaking ball strike, and the count 0-1. So no balls and 1 strike. Berroa struggling at 185. Weaver's fastball is swung on and missed 0-2. It was back in May of 2005 when Jered Weaver finally signed with the Angels. They almost lost him. Weaver ready, and the strike 2 pitch to Berroa is fouled away. He signed just minutes before the midnight deadline for signing picks from the 2004 draft. Signed a big contract, several $1 million, and has certainly proven worth it. Strike 2 pitch way off the plate, ball 1, 1-2. At one time, when Jered was at Long Beach State, he refined his mental preparation using sports psychology consultant Ken Ravizza. The next one pulled foul the other way outside at 3rd. Ken was and may still be, a kinesiology professor at Cal State Fullerton, and he helped Weaver. It was necessary because he had to deal with attention deficit disorder, the dreaded ADD. The 1-2 pitch swung on and fouled away off to the right. So Berroa making Weaver work, and the count stays 1-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Weaver ready. Here he comes. Whips that fastball in. Strike 3 call. That'll be 4 strikeouts for Jered. 1 out, and Billingsley coming up. You know, the Dodgers have a new weeknight ticket special. It'll save you as much as $22 on our best reserve level seats, thanks to Panda Express. All reserve level tickets see the Dodgers and Braves Monday, July 7th, or the Marlins Thursday, July 10th. They cost just $6. So log on to Dodgers.com/specials. Use the promo code EGRO. No score, bottom of the 3rd. Billingsley, a check swing for a strike. Chad hitting .074. He does have 2 hits. Of his 27 at bats, however, he has struck out 17 times. The 1-1 pitch just off the plate. Chad held up. 2 balls, 1 strike. No score, bottom of the 3rd. Only 1 hit in the game. The single by Howie Kendrick, opening up the 3rd inning. Back comes Weaver over the top, and the fastball is high, so he falls behind 3-1 to Chad Billingsley. He's already walked 1. That was Ethier in the 1st inning. Jered ready, turns, and the 6'7" right-hander deals another strike, and they count 3-2. Dodgers and Angels one more time tomorrow. John Lackey and Derek Lowe. 3-2 pitch coming up, and it's in there. Strike 3 call. So 5 strikeouts for Jered Weaver. He can bring it, as the players say. And he has struck out 5 of the last 6 Dodgers. So turnabout is fair play. Last night, the Dodgers struck out 7 of the last 8. And here is Pierre. Interesting that Pierre does better against left-hand pitching than against right, at least so far. And the pitch to him drops in for a strike. Against right-handers, Pierre is hitting .243. Against left-hand pitching, hitting .372. Hits a big foul outside of first down the line. Hat trick down there. 0-2 the count. So Juan fly to center in the 1st inning. He's hitting .280 with 24 runs batted in. Now the strike 2 pitch on the way. Juan takes at his feet. Ball 1. 1-2. So Juan Pierre trying to get aboard and make something happen. Born in Mobile, Alabama, lives in Alexandria, Louisiana, and went to the University of South Alabama. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Juan times it, hits it in the air, but it's going to go right into the glove of Torrey Hunter. So down go the Dodgers, and that's a string of 8 in a row retired by Jared Weaver, and at the end of 3, no score. Fourth inning, no score in the ball game. 2 fine young right-handers on hand tonight. Jared Weaver at 25, Chad Billingsley at 23, and you look at the numbers, and they are very close to each other in more ways than one. Look at the strikeouts. So in the 4th inning, it'll be Garrett Anderson, Vladimir Guerrero, and Torrey Hunter, and Chad Billingsley ready to go to work. Anderson grounded out in the 1st inning. That's a strike. Garrett had 1 hit last night, so he is 1 for 5 in the series. And that's a strike, so he's in a hole 0-2. Couple of hitters now disagreeing with Jeff Nelson early in the game. No balls and 2 strikes the count. Check swing. They're going to look at third. No swing, says Jim Joyce. Garrett's cool, isn't he? I mean, he just plays gracefully, calmly, and he's had some career. Anderson started with the Angels in 1994. He's still there and not moving, which in his life is a rarity. When he grew up, he was born in Los Angeles. He moved 11 times. He lives now in Granada Hills. Chases one in the dirt. The out will have to be recorded at first. So down goes Garrett Anderson. 4 strikeouts for Chad Billingsley. 9 strikeouts already. A mean down and dirty curveball. And that takes care of Garrett. Now Vladimir Guerrero. You don't use great very often, especially with the active players, but you're looking at a great player, certainly a great hitter, let's put it that way. Most consecutive seasons with a .300 batting average, 25 home runs or better. Well, he has done it 10 times. 1-1. When he does it this year, if indeed he does, he will tie Lou Gehrig. It's been since 10 years, just about a decade. He has more go-ahead RBIs than anybody else in baseball, well over 300. What the Dodgers have done last night and so far tonight, they have shut down the Angels' heart of the lineup. Numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 hitters for the Angels are 2 for 18 without an extra base hit or a run batted in. 3-1. And ball 4. So Vladimir Guerrero draws a walk for the 25th time. He is not much of a base stealing threat. He has one, and he's been caught once. And the batter, Torrey Hunter. No runs, 1 hit for the Angels. No runs, no hits for the Dodgers. We're in the top of the 4th inning. Torrey Hunter struck out in the 2nd inning. 7 Gold Gloves, 9 home runs, 37 runs batted in, and a strike. 0-1. Torrey formerly with Minnesota, as you know, and how about those Twins? Don't know what they did today, but they had won 10 straight. And it looks like Milwaukee beat them. I think Milwaukee beat them 5-1 to snap that 10-game winning streak. comebacker off the glove of Billingsley, but he still will get Vladimir. Could have been a double play, but he'll settle for the force, and that will allow Casey Kotchman to come up. So Billingsley stays with it, gets it just in time to Berroa. And Casey Kotchman now checking in at the plate. The only difference, Guerrero with 1 stolen base. Hunter has stolen 9 out of 12. So it makes for a different mental idea as far as Billingsley is concerned. He has to keep an eye out at first. And there immediately goes the runner, fouled away. 0-1 the count. So they put the hit and run play on right away. No balls and 1 strike the count. Casey Kotchman, a reliable hitter. In fact, you may remember when he first came up, he had 63 at-bats without striking out. 0-1 the count. There goes Hunter again. A chopper, a great diving stop by Loney. Takes it to the bag. Well, there's a Gold Glove in his future. I would be assured of that. And just showing you his potential. So no runs, no hits, a man left at the end of 3.5. No score. Tonight's CarMax text question is, which team do you think is the favorite to win the American League right now? The Angels, the Red Sox, or the White Sox? Text your answer 86212 on your cell, and you become eligible to win a grand prize trip for 2 to the Dodgers spring training camp in Arizona next year. Bottom of the 4th inning. Andre Ethier against Jared Weaver. Ball 1. Interesting previous inning. Billingsley failing to handle the comebacker, and that could have really hurt him. An exchange from Guerrero to Hunter, so they were running Hunter, and then Kotchman hits what would have been a base hit except for the defensive excellence of James Loney. So the Dodgers got away with 1. No score, bottom of the 4th. Weaver's on a roll. Jared's retired 8 in a row. He has 5 strikeouts. 25 years old, turning in a dandy. Fastball, strike. Jared's high strikeouts would be back in May against the Dodgers when he struck out 7. Well, he's already has 5. 2-2. Big chopper to short. Nice big hop for Albert. So 1 away.
Dodgers catcher,
That'll bring up Russell Martin. The Dodgers were running Ethier in the 1st inning, and Martin grounded to 3rd. Interesting, in the 3rd inning, Jared Weaver made 17 pitches in that inning. That's not a lot. Big slow curve, ball 1. But it took 13 pitches to retire Berroa and Billingsley. 1 ball and no strikes. And of course Berroa hits 8th and Billingsley the pitcher. So Weaver had to work harder than just 17 pitches would indicate in the 3rd inning. 2 balls, no strikes. And ball 3. 3-0 the count to Martin. The Dodgers don't green light Martin that often. Jeff Kent on deck, green light all the time. Martin 8 home runs, 37 runs batted in, has walked more than he has struck out. There is a beach ball loose in left field. timeout for the moment. 3-0 to Martin. Well, they've retrieved it. There's something on the field in center field. I don't know what that is. On the track, no one has noticed it. Here's the 3-0 pitch in there. 3-1. No score. Bottom of the fourth. And a strike. Well, he had 3-0. Now he goes all the way. Weaver has walked 1, struck out 5. He retired 9 in a row. Three balls, 2 strikes. Big bouncer foul outside of third. Russ hitting .311, 8 home runs, 37 runs batted in. Oh, by the way, we want to send along our best wishes to Dodger bullpen coach Ken Howell. Fouled away. Kenny's sidelined with a foot infection and some physical problems, and we want him to know that we are thinking about him, praying for a speedy recovery and a quick return. In the meantime, the Dodgers are fortunate. Jim Slayton, who was the pitching coach at Las Vegas, has been called up. He's in the pen taking over Ken's job for the moment. George Culver will become the Las Vegas pitching coach pro tem. Kenny Gedwell. 3-2 the count to Russell Martin. Ball 4, so that breaks the streak. He has walked 2. He has not given up a hit, and now he faces Kent, whom he struck out in the first inning. Jeff Kent hitting .252. He has 8 home runs, 34 runs batted in. Weaver is 7-7, but 3-0 against the Dodgers in his career. Martin at first, no slouch at stealing bases, as you know. And that's going to be lifted up into that sky, and looking up into it is Kendrick. 1 away. Now 2. So with 2 out and Martin at first, the batter will be James Loney. It's the old story. Fella swings at the first pitch on the heels of a walk. The idea is, of course, the pitcher's certainly on the aftermath of a walk trying to get ahead. So the hitter figures it's going to be a good pitch to handle, goes after it, pops it up. That's the other catch-22. You keep reading about how the Dodgers want their young hitters to be more patient. But when you're facing a Mark Burley, Cliff Lee, fellas who throw strikes, if you're patient, you're going to be 0-2 all the time. And if you're 0-2, you're not going to hit a lick. By the way, we were talking about some of the Dodgers that there's a beach ball in center, so we have a moment. Some of the Dodgers who will be in Las Vegas with Jones, Furcal, and Garcia-Parra. The report on Jason Schmidt. He pitched in Fresno tonight for Las Vegas. Gave up 3 hits, 1 run, walked 2, struck out 1, and made 45 pitches, which is the pitch count they wanted him to make. And when he made 45, they said that's enough. So he went 2 2/3 innings. So the big thing now with Schmidt, how will he feel tomorrow? 1 ball, no strikes. And ball 2. For the Dodgers, this is their 80th game. So when they finish tomorrow, they're at the halfway mark. For the Angels, when they finish tonight, they'll be at the halfway mark. And for Joe Torre and company, they're thinking, wait a minute, we're still on the heels of Arizona, and we're going to get some big boys back. 2-0. 2-1. Without Rafael Furcal prior to last night, the Dodgers were 17-28. So they feel they're much stronger if Furcal is healthy, playing short. And then they're hoping maybe just before the All-Star break to get Furcal back. After the All-Star break, Andrew Jones. And we'll find out more about Jason Schmidt. Whoa, that was close. And Nomar might very well come back before the break. So halfway through the race, that's all. Angels 3.5 games in front of Oakland, and they will go home to play Oakland. 2-1. Foul the other way. 2-2 the count. I'm sure if you're a base runner, you're watching that shoulder of Weaver as he swings it. You want to make sure he's committing towards home plate. And you can imagine with 2 out, Martin is doing just that. Martin so far this year has stolen 7 out of 11. Loney, who made that dazzling play on the ball hit by Casey Kotchman to end the 4th, struck out in the 2nd inning. 2-2. Crack bat, little dribbler to Kotchman. He will take it to the bag, and that's it. That sounded like a celery stalk. You could hear it even up here. So no runs, no hits, a man left, and at the end of 4, no score. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by Sharp Aquas LCD TV. Change your TV, change your life. By Carl's Jr. Without us, some guys would starve. By Infinity, luxury and performance that stir the soul. And by Miller Lite, the perfect combination of taste and refreshment. No score as we move to the 5th inning. No runs, 1 hit for the Angels. No runs, no hits for the Dodgers. Howie Kendrick, Jeff Mathis, and then Jared Weaver. Chad Billingsley allowing only the single to Kendrick back in the 3rd inning. 0-1 to Howie. We mentioned last night his name is Howard. And in the minor leagues, they were making up a baseball card, and they said to him, how do you want it, Howard or Howie? And he said, oh, I don't care. So they made it Howie, and it's been that way ever since. Recently, in a game against the Philadelphia Phillies, he had a career-high 4-hit game. With runners in scoring position coming into this game, he's hitting .474. 1-2. And if you go back to the All-Star break of last year, he has really come of age as a hitter. Since last year's All-Star break, he's hitting .339. So he's been dynamite. And a roller to Baroa. 1 away. That'll bring up Jeff Mathis.
Catcher number 5, Jeff Mathis.
Mathis drew a walk in the 3rd inning. That's when Billingsley was in his only jam. He had 2 on and nobody out. Jared Weaver tried to bunt twice, couldn't do it, then swung at a pitch in the dirt, struck out. And with that reprieve, Billingsley got his tourist to pop up and Ibar to ground out. Mathis hitting .215. 0-1. Mathis taking over behind the plate. Mike Napoli is hitting just .206. That's a strike. So Napoli waiting his turn. For all we know, Mike very well in there tomorrow. So Napoli waits. Mike's from Hollywood, Florida. Still 0-2. Russell Martin playing almost all the time. Danny Ardwa might be going tomorrow. Dodgers leave after the game tomorrow and head for Houston. To the backstop. 1-2 the count. Dodgers have a 4-game series with the Astros, and then the weekend of July 4th they're in San Francisco. Kind of surprising it has taken us into the first week of July to get to San Francisco. Fouled away. Jared Weaver in the on deck circle. That's a dangerous area. 1-2. No score. 5th inning. One of those games that keeps building. Two and two. Of course, all of a sudden there has been a run shortage here at Dodger Stadium. Really starting back in the Indians. Then with the White Sox, the Dodgers got 1 run. The White Sox won 6-1. Dodgers came back with a shutout to beat the White Sox 5-0. Then the White Sox came back and shut out the Dodgers 2-0. Then last night the Dodgers shut out the Angels 6-0. Fouled away. The run certainly at a premium for the last week. Two and two the count to Jeff Mathis. Yeah, that's the way to do it. No arguments, no disagreements. You root for both clubs. Oh, what a great breaking ball. Mathis just gave up on it. Slow curveball, and it just dropped in to nail him. 5 strikeouts for Billingsley. Up there and then dripped in there. Great pitch. So 10 hitters have struck out tonight, 5 on each side. And Weaver certainly is a potential. He struck out in the 3rd. And another breaking ball. It's kind of dirty pool to throw good curveballs to an American League pitcher. And Weaver had to talk to Russell Martin as if to say, boy, you guys are really tough. Then the Express, 1-2 the count. So Martin shuffling his cards mentally. Weaver waiting. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Well, that got away. 2-2 the count. Billingsley 90 on the gun with the fastball. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. 5th inning, no score. Weaver is 6'7", so he certainly gives you a good strike zone. And that'll do it. So a half a dozen strikeouts for Billingsley. Weaver has 5, and we're heading for the bottom of the 5th. No score. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by the Lexus RX 350 with 14 actively safe features, continuing the pursuit of perfection. By Southwest Airlines, you're now free to be more productive. By Phyten, experience the energy. And by Warner Brothers' new motion picture, The Dark Knight, in theaters everywhere July 18th. It's interesting to compare the 2 pitchers yet again. Weaver has made 71 pitches. Billingsley has made 73. The interesting thing about Weaver, he has not allowed a hit, despite the fact he's gotten a first pitch strike to only 5 of 14 batters. Usually pitching behind like that, you're going to be touched up. Now for Billingsley, he's had 7 0-2 counts and 13 out of 18 first pitch strikes. Here's Matt Kemp. Ball 1. Gee, I remember years ago in New York, all of the broadcasters were so intimidated by the radio and TV columnists. Little squirt job, English all over it, and Weaver can't pick it up. That looked like a runaway gyroscope, and let's see how they're going to rule it. I mean, he's got a no-hitter in the 5th inning, a squibber. Look at this thing. I mean, he's got to make that play, and he doesn't. I can't believe they're going to give Kemp a hit. Wow. Well, we were going to tell you all. Now they've changed it. Okay, that's better. I mean, holy mackerel. This is the big leagues. You're supposed to make that play for sure. So Kemp is aboard on the error. What I was going to say, back in the 50s, if you were doing a ball game and someone was pitching a no-hitter, even in the 4th, 5th inning, oh, you had better not talk about it. And we were so intimidated, Mel Allen and I, we were doing Don Larson's perfect game, and Mel did the first half of the game. And what he did, he would count the outs. He would say, well, that's the 12th consecutive out. That's the 14th consecutive out. So by the time I got on, I figured, well, if that's good enough for him, it's sure good enough for me. There goes Kemp. The pitch is outside. The throw is into center field. And Matt is on his way to third. So Matt Kemp is so lucky to get on base, and he steals second and takes third on the overthrow. And boy, that was an overthrow. The Angels made one error last night. The Dodgers did not make any. So in 12 games between the two teams, the Angels have now made 6 errors, and the Dodgers have made 17. The infield has to play up. And a high fly ball to Guerrero. That'll get Kemp home. Vladimir gonna make the effort, and he throws a dart. One hopper. Wow. Is that great? The run scored, but what a magnificent throw by Vladimir Guerrero. And the Dodgers take a 1-0 lead. I just love to watch outfielders make strong throws. Watch this. I mean, right on the money. One hopper. What a God-given ability that is. But he was too far out. Kemp is in, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. Dodgers still looking for a hit. The overthrow on the stolen base helps give the Dodgers the run and give Mathis the throwing error. A fly ball to Torrey Hunter for the second out.
Pitcher number 58, Chad Billingsley.
So Weaver is down 1-0 despite not allowing a hit, and it's, let's face it, it's his own fault. I mean, he should easily have fielded the ball by Matt Kemp. So Chad Billingsley coming up. Billingsley struck out in the 3rd inning. Dodgers 1 run, no hits. Angels no runs, 1 hit. We're in the 5th inning. Ball 1. And ball 2. When the Angels come up in the 6th inning, it'll be Izturis, Ibar, and Anderson. One night years ago, the All-Star game at Yankee Stadium, and it was such a thrill. It had nothing to do with the game, but it had to do with the warm-ups. And the National League right fielders were really putting on a show. Those were the days when the outfielders threw to the bases before a game. The right fielders that night, Ellis Valentine, Dave Parker, and Reggie Smith. And each one was trying to outdo the other. You never saw such incredible throws in all your life. Thought about that after watching Guerrero get off that throw. Vladimir, by the way, is due to bat fourth when the Angels hit in the sixth inning. So Billingsley at first with 2 out. They're not going to hold him on, and Pierre checks in. 2 fly balls to center. Juan hitting .279. Slow curveball for a strike. 0-1. 1-0 Dodgers without a hit in the fifth inning. They're not going to hold Billingsley. They certainly don't expect him to run. Ground ball, Howie Kendrick. And that'll be that. But the Dodgers parlay the error, the stolen base, Mathis throw into center, and a long fly ball to right by Blake DeWitt. 1-0 Dodgers. On this day in 2005, Craig Biggio was playing in Coors Field and was hit by a pitch by Byung-Hyun Kim. It marked the 268th time that he was hit by a pitch in his career. He wound up being hit 285 times. You know what's interesting? Garrett Anderson has had 14 years in the big leagues, and he has been hit a total of 6. And with that, let's go to the sixth inning. So Garrett Anderson, who has enjoyed quite a ride, when Biggio was hit 268 times, that broke Don Baylor's record, and then Craig went on to 285. Anyway, here's his tourist. Meiser fly to right, popped to short. 0 for 2. 2 balls and no strikes. Chad Billingsley walked Guerrero in the fourth inning, and he walked Mathis in the third. That's a strike. Remember at the very start of the game, we mentioned the fact that neither Billingsley nor Weaver has any kind of a record at all in holding runners on. The league, each league runs on each pitcher. And wouldn't you know, the difference now is a stolen base. First the error by Weaver, and then the stolen base by Kemp, and then the overthrow. So sooner or later, up jumps the stolen base for these two. Still 2-2 the count to his tourists. Batting .263, 3 home runs, 27 runs batted in. Done a wonderful job with runners in scoring position, and he's hit safely in 21 of his last 24. His tourist playing third, but he's also a very good shortstop. No errors at short. Chopper to Kent. Chad Billingsley is on a strikeout pace right about now. He's capable of doing that, of course, at any time. It started out with Torrey Hunter being called out. Then he came right back with Casey Kochman. Then it was Jared Weaver. Then it was Garrett Anderson. And then he got Mathis and Weaver again to give himself the 6 Ks. These game-changing plays brought to you by Sharp Aquas. Ibar running to bunt, apparently did not move the bat. 1 ball and no strikes. One nothing Dodgers. A shattered bat and a ball hit down the line. Ibar is around first. Ethier guns it into second. He is out at second. Great throw by Andre Ethier to Angel Baroa. Take another look. Watch this bat break. You've seen a few of those. Wow. So Ethier going to the line. It sure looked like a cinch double. And there's a big league outfield throw. So we've had two of them. Guerrero couldn't get his man, and Ethier gets his. So Ibar a single, and he's out 9-6. Wonderful throw by Andre. And here's Garrett Anderson, a strike. 0-1. Five assists now for Andre. The thing, I guess, one of the things I've always missed in the last X number of years. In the old days, you always saw the infield take infield practice, and then you always saw the outfield throw to the bases. They never do that again, ever. Boy, I miss it. Right, 1-2. There have been some unbelievable arms playing this game in the outfield. Rocky Colavito had a great arm. Didn't see much of him, but heard about him. You just saw Guerrero's throw. Roberto Clemente had a magnificent arm. So did Carl Furillo of the Dodgers. And then, as we mentioned, Ellis Valentine, Dave Parker, Reggie Smith. Oh, there were so many. In fact, Gary Renicky, who is the brother of Ron Renicky, the Angel bench coach. Gary, when he played with Ellis Valentine, would not go to right field with Valentine to loosen up. He said, I wasn't about to throw and then have Valentine throw. So Ron, meanwhile, his brother, right here, the bench coach for Mike Sosa. And now here comes Vladimir. 1-0 in favor of the Dodgers on no hits. The Angels no runs, 2 hits. Guerrero robbed of a hit and walked. And a hopper down to Kent, and it gets away from him. And just like that, runners at first and second. So that'll be an error charged to Jeff Kent. So in the inning following the strikeout, you had Ibar's broken bat single and Ethier's great throw to get him at second, followed by the walk to Anderson, and now the error by Kent. And there are 2 on, 2 out, and the batter will be Torrey Hunter. For Jeff Kent, that would be the 7th error he's made this year. For Billingsley, he has now made 89 pitches. Hunter has struck out, hit into a force play. 0-1. Nothing Dodgers on no hits. Angels no runs, 2 hits and 2 errors. And a little dunker foul. Loney trying to get under it and can't do it. So near and yet so far. Take a look to see where the stands are. Lean over, come up short. James already helped out back in the 4th inning on a ball hit by Casey Kotchman. 0-2 to Torrey, hitting .277 with 9 home runs, 37 runs batted in. Hunter signing that 5-year deal that was worth $90 million. Signed it in November of last year. Down he goes. So for Chad Billingsley, he strikes out 2. He has struck out 8. Andre Ethier makes a big throw, and the Dodgers still lead 1-0. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by Nissan and your Nissan dealer. By AM/PM, have it all and then some. At AM/PM, you can never have too much good stuff. By CarMax, the way car buying should be. And by your California Chrysler dealers. Chrysler, engineered beautifully. Boy, we have ourselves a dandy here. Bottom of the 6th inning. 1-0 Dodgers on zip hits. Andre Ethier, Russell Martin, and Jeff Kent. Ethier has walked, grounded out, and made that great throw on the base hit by Ibar. Andre hitting .278, 7 home runs, 32 runs batted in. Had that big 3-run home run last night. And a fly ball to right field. Vlad is there. 1 away. So the only run, in case you missed it, in the 5th inning, Matt Kemp hit a ball off the end of the bat like a pool hall cue ball shot and went squirting up along first base. And Jared Weaver, in his haste to pick it up, overran it. It went as an error. Then Kemp stole second. Mathis tried to catch him and threw the ball into center field, sending Kemp to third, and DeWitt's fly ball to right field, deep enough to score the run barely on a great one-hopper from Vladimir Guerrero. One other footnote, we told you about Jason Smith pitching pretty well. 45 pitches tonight, and they say his velocity was up to 91. So if Schmidt gets healthy and the Dodgers hope to get Furcal and Garcia-Parra and maybe Andrew Jones back, we should be in for quite a second half. That's right. 1-2. D-backs beat the Florida Marlins 6-2. So the Dodgers trying to hold on and win to remain 2.5 back. 2-2. Jared Weaver 7-7, but he's a perfect 3-0 in his career against the Dodgers. Fouled away. Hope you'll be with us tomorrow afternoon in person, if at all possible. John Lackey and Derek Lowe. Final Dodger Angel game of the year. 2-2. Little dribbler cutting over in front of Ibar as Turris to make a good play. 2 down.
Second baseman, number 12, Jeff Kent.
Here comes Turris. Nails him easily. Jeff Kent struck out, popped up 0 for 2. To look ahead for the Angels in the 7th, they'll have Kochman, Kendrick, and Mathis. Kent batting .251. Fouled away. 0-1. Weaver has 5 strikeouts. 3 walks. Billingsley has 8 strikeouts and 3 walks. 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. And did that his uniform? I guess it did. Yep. So Jeff Kent looked like he got out of the way of it. Mike Scioscia hollers over to Jeff Nelson. But of course, remember, your uniform is all part of it. Mike can't believe the call. But if it hits the shirt right there, I guess that shirt was hanging out just enough. Of course, the problem was Jeff doesn't react as if he's hit. Why should he? It hit his shirt. And that's probably got Scioscia. Like, you can go to first. And Mike said, well, he didn't even act like he got hit. But it just did get the button of his shirt, I think. So after talking about Craig Biggio, he would have thrown that back. I mean, that was not good enough as a hit batter for Biggio. That's right. James Loney struck out, grounded out. Made a wonderful play on Casey Kotchman back in the 4th inning with a man aboard. That could be a huge play in this game. 1-0 Dodgers, but 1 run on no hits, and the Angels no runs, 2 hits, 2 errors. The errors set up the Dodger run. Oh, 0-2. Whoa, high fastball. James going after a bad ball, but it was 92. So Weaver comes up with his 6th strikeout. He's still pitching a no-hitter, and he's still losing 1-0. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by Infinity, luxury and performance that stir the soul. By Southwest Airlines, you're now free to be more productive. Visit southwest.com today. By Wells Fargo, seize your someday. And by your Southern California Dodge dealers, live life to the fullest. Dodge, grab life. Billingsley and Weaver still very close. Billingsley has made 92 pitches. Weaver has made 97, and it's 1-0 Dodgers. Kotchman struck out, robbed of a hit on a diving stop by James Loney. Casey 0 for 2. Foul ball. 1 ball and 1 strike. Kotchman, Kendrick, and Mathis with the pitcher Weaver due up 4th. Tomorrow afternoon, John Lackey and Derek Lowe. Sure hope you'll be out here with us. Breeze has picked up left to right. Check swing for a strike. 1-2. That's basically the prevailing breeze here. Not much, just enough to stir the cloths. And that's to the hole. Base hit. So Kotchman goes 1 for 3 with a single to left, and the batter will be Howie Kendrick. Here's a look at our CarMax text message voting so far. Remember, we asked, which team do you think is the favorite to win the American League right now? Do you think the Angels, the Red Sox, or the White Sox? Well, 71% of you say right now the Angels, 20% the Red Sox, 9% the White Sox. Text your answer 86212. We'll see how it comes out. Here's Kendrick, singled and grounded out. Strike. 0-1 to Howie. All eyes on Dino Abell coaching at third to see if there's a play on. Kotchman 2 for 2 in stolen bases, but you're thinking more hit and run. 1 ball and 1 strike. Kendrick hitting .311 and has struck out 24 times. The one thing about Kendrick, you just can't walk him. He's so aggressive. He has only walked 3 times. That's a strike. 1 and 2. In fact, since we were talking earlier about hit batter, he's been hit as many times as he has walked. 3. Fouled away. 1 run, no hits, 1 error for the Dodgers. No runs, 3 hits, 2 errors for the Angels. Chad now 100 pitches. Two and 2. Gary Matthews loosening up down in the dugout as Weaver sits quietly. But Matthews jumping up in the air, twisting, stretching his hamstrings. And now Billingsley, after the base hit, goes 3-2 to Kendrick. Gary Matthews, meanwhile, now has a bat in his hands. Dodgers trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead. There's Matthews chewing on the gum, telling Renicky he's about ready. There goes the runner, and the ball is hit to the gap. Ethier on his horse picks it off, and back to first base comes Kochman. Big play by Andre Ethier to run down a double and turn it into an out. So Kendrick, a drive to right center, and Andre catches it. So now Gary Matthews will come out on deck, to no one's surprise, and bat for Joe Mathis. Another fine play by Andre Ethier. Matthews appeared as a pinch hitter last night and struck out. So Gary Matthews will be coming up. Rick Honeycutt has gone out to talk to Billingsley. They're moving the furniture around in the Dodger bullpen as they try to hold on to a 1-0 lead. Down in the Dodger pen, Brian Falkenberg, Joe Beimel. Beimel, of course, the left-hander. Gary Matthews not hitting for Weaver, but for Mathis. Arredondo had been throwing in the Angel bullpen, but I mean, be awfully tough, wouldn't it, to take Weaver out? I mean, yeah, he's losing 1-0, but he's pitching a no-hitter. Though for Mike Scioscia, maybe a tough decision coming up. Then again, Gary Matthews could make things a lot easier for him. Gary Matthews' father, Sarge as they called him, had a great career in the big leagues. And among other things, Gary played with Bobby Bonds when Gary was just a little guy. And very often, Gary would have Barry Bonds babysitting. Ground foul, 0-1. To the pinch hitter. Gary Matthews hitting .243. He has 7 home runs, 33 runs batted in. Talking to Dino Ebel, saying go over the signs again. I didn't get it. Out on deck is Sean Figgins. So Figgins with an infected knee is on deck. That seemed to almost cross up Russell Martin. He has trouble handling that one. 1 ball and 1 strike. Gary Matthews once hit for the cycle when he was with Texas. Interestingly enough, he hit it in chronological order. A single, then a double, then a triple, then a home run. That's only been done by 13 others in Major League history. 1-1. Gary's a switch hitter. Kochman at first, 1 out. Nice play by Ethier. Fastball comebacker, Billingsley to Berroa, and a bad throw, and Matthews will go to second. Angel Berroa had a double play, but he couldn't turn it. It was a legitimate hard slide by Casey Kochman, but the Angels get a big break. Instead of the inning being over, instead they had the tying run at second base. So Berroa draws the error, and the batter now will be Sean Figgins. So for Jared Weaver, despite the fact he has not allowed a hit, he goes out for a pinch hitter. Butcher coming over to give him, well, condolences. Wow. In case you wonder, since 1900, there have been 4 no-hit losses. The Weaver, his own error. That's the one good thing he can really blame himself. His inability to hold a runner, then the throwing error by Mathis, and then the fly ball to right. So Matthews at second, 2 out, and here is Figgins with a bad knee. You know, when you see the player slide, you forget there's only a little cloth covering the skin of the legs. So Figgins cut his knee sliding in Philadelphia and then developed an infection. And as he said, hey, I didn't want that thing going up my leg. So they said, well, then stop playing and we'll treat it. But here he is as a pinch hitter. Figgins batting .303, trying to pick up Matthews and get the Angels even. Ground foul. Sean Figgins, a remarkably talented ball player when you realize he can play almost anywhere on the field, and more than that, do a very good job. Figgins is from Leary, Georgia, and the Dodgers had best be very leery of him right now. 2-1. And ball 3. I always loved the story about Figgins' mom and dad. His parents were born on the same day to families who lived in adjacent houses in Leary. Unbelievable. And he and Juan Pierre are very good friends. And a little roller to short. Baroa will get him, and the Dodgers dodge a bullet. Give up a base hit. Fine running play by Ethier, the error, and then the ground ball, and it's still 1-0 Dodgers. Crowd, Saturday Night Fever, good voices, and it's nice to see them getting along so well. 1-0 Dodgers, bottom of the 7th inning. A beautiful evening. It was 72 degrees when the first pitch was made, and we're happy to have them all out here. If you possibly can, hope you make your choice and be with us tomorrow. The game right revolves on the 5th inning. The little squibber Weaver overruns a ball that he should have made, then vulnerable to the stolen base, and Mathis throws it into center, and then the fly ball to right. The wonderful throw by Guerrero, but Matt Kemp is just able to beat a one-hopper, and that's it. It is 1-0 in favor of the Dodgers on no hits. For the Angels, Napoli will take over behind the plate, and Arredondo will pick up for hard luck Jared Weaver. Jose Arredondo, tall and lean. Arredondo is from San Pedro de Macorís, and ball 1. He's about 170 pounds, 6-footer. Signed with the Angels about 6 years ago. The Angels at one time had another Arredondo, Felipe, but they're not related. This Arredondo started out as a shortstop. Didn't hit enough. So they decided to take him to the mound because they felt he had the arm, the power arm of a Sean Dunston. Two and 0. Ground ball to third. One away. So Kemp, who scored the only run, grounds out to go 0 for 3. Blake DeWitt will be the batter. Chad Billingsley so far has made 111 pitches. You just wonder if he will pitch any longer because Jonathan Broxton is up in the bullpen. John made 21 pitches last night, so we will see. 1-0 Dodgers on no hits. Well, Weaver is out of it, but we ought to tell you about that note. There have been 4 no-hit losses. The last time, fellow who had one time pitched for the Dodgers, Matt Young, in 1992, he lost an 8-inning no-hitter. Of the 4 no-hit losses, there's only been one where the pitcher pitched 9 innings. That was Ken Johnson back in 1964. I believe he was with Houston at the time. Another note about a no-hit loss going back to 1967. The Orioles had Steve Barber and Stu Miller combined. Barber went 8 2/3 innings. Miller got an out, a third, and they lost. And Barber hit 2 batters in that game and walked 10 and lost a no-hitter. So I'm not saying that Jared's going to lose, but if he does, he has some company. That's a strike. 2-2. It'll be the top of the order in the 8th inning is Turris, Ibar, Anderson. And ball 3. Arredondo has been in 16 games. His strikeout to walk ratio is 8-1. He has 16 strikeouts and 2 walks. ERA $1.50. Check swing. Did he? Yes. They're going to break the news. Blake, I'm sorry. I'm dreadfully sorry. You should make that trip. 2 down. Take another look. Looked like ball 4, but immediately Napoli gestured and Jim Joyce called him out. No comment from Jeff Nelson. So 2 out. Here is Angel Baroa. Struck out, fly to center. He got off the hook when Figgins grounded out after his throwing error put Matthews the tying run at second base. Oh, 0-2 to Baroa. He is below the Mendoza line. Mario Mendoza, who played labored and hard for Pittsburgh, couldn't quite hit 200, and 200 was the Mendoza line. Angel, pull foul, hitting 179. Big crowd seeing a very rare game with Billingsley with the windbreaker. Mark Sweeney is on deck and Broxton getting ready. 1-2 the count. So Sweeney would hit for Billingsley if Baroa gets aboard. 2 out. 1-2. 2-2. Arredondo got into a little trouble with management. But he is talented. And down goes Baroa. So a 1-2-3 inning. Arredondo strikes out 2. Billingsley is finished for the night and walks off leading 1-0. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. You're now free to be more productive. Visit southwest.com today. By your Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota, moving forward. by Carl's Jr. Without us, some guys would starve. And by the 2008 Lincoln Navigator at your Southern California Lincoln Mercury dealer today. 1-0 Dodgers on no hits. So Joe Torre has had some miracles pull out of a hat, but this one is really a dandy. Chad Billingsley went 7, made 111 pitches. Now gives the ball to Jonathan Broxton. Broxton last night made 21 pitches. He pitched the 8th inning and struck out the side. The Big John now will be working on Izturis, Ibar, and Anderson. Though for all intents and purposes, all left-handed batters, although Izturis and Ibar switch. Izturis flied to right, popped to short, struck out, always a threat to bunt. Dodgers pull up the corners. And ball 1. For Broxton, 41 strikeouts in 31 innings. And ball 2. The other thing about Broxton, 42 strikeouts, he has walked 13. So a little better than 3-1. 2 balls, no strikes. That's a strike. So the Angels shut down last night for 9, have now drawn blanks for 7. So 16 scoreless innings. Two and 2. When the Angels came in here, Mike's ball club still not shut out at home, but counting last night, they've been shut out 3 times on the road. And remember how successful they are on the road. In fact, their record in shutouts, they have 7. The opposition blanking them 3 times. 2 and 2 the count to Izturis. And on the corner, strike 3 call. So remember, the Angels last night struck out 12 times and the last 6 in a row. So far tonight, the Angels have struck out 9 times. So they've struck out 21 times in 16 1/3 innings. And the batter, Eric Ibar. Grounded to second twice, single to right. Chopper right to Jeff Kent. Quickly 2 out in the 8th inning. When Ibar broke his bat, it looked like a double, and that's when Ethia made the great throw. Well, here are the final numbers for our CarMax text message question. Remember, which team do you think is the favorite to win the American League right now? Angels, Red Sox, or White Sox? 70% of you said the Angels. Pretty good reason. The Angels started the night 3.5 in front of Oakland. Angels have won 48. Red Sox have won 50. And a flare to left field, and that's going to drop. Pierre cuts it off, and holding is Anderson. And so the door is open again for Vladimir Guerrero. You talk about drama in this one. Guerrero, with a 16-game hitting streak, has grounded to third. That was a big play by DeWitt to take a hit away from him. Then he walked, and last time up, he had a hard ground ball that got away from Kent for an error. Guerrero did not face Broxton last night. In fact, Guerrero has never faced Broxton until now. Little slider. The paid attendance tonight, it's the third sellout of the year. 55,784. And if this game continues the way it's going, they have a lot to talk about and a lot to remember. 0-1 to Vladimir. And a slow chopper to third. DeWitt quickly to Kemp. And they are out of the inning, are the Dodgers. At the end of 7.5, Dodgers won on no hits. Angels nothing. Dodgers lead 1-0 on no hits in the 8th inning. And Delwyn Young will bat for Jonathan Broxton. The no-hitters turned in by Angel pitchers. Bo Belinsky, Clyde Wright, Nolan Ryan had 4, and Mike Witt. They also had a combined no-hitter, Mark Langston and Mike Witt, but they won all those games. Here they are in danger of losing a no-hitter, and Delwyn Young will start it off. Broxton made 9 pitches to dispatch the Angels in the 8th. Ball 1. Boy, when you think of the down through the years, the hundreds and hundreds of games into the thousands, and a no-hitter that you might lose. Unbelievable. Ground ball to Kendrick and away. How did the Dodgers get the run, in case you weren't with us? Matt Kemp cued one. It should have been fielded by Jared Weaver, but he overran it. And if that wasn't bad enough, Kemp not only stole second, but went to third on the error. And Blake, a fly ball deep to right. Magnificent throw by Guerrero, but Kemp came in ahead of it. And that's it. It's 1-0 Dodgers. Although Jeff Mathis will feel badly about his throwing error, Jared Weaver really has no one but himself to blame. Not only his failure to pick up that little spinning top up along first, but then the usual weakness, allowing a stolen base, then the throwing error. One other note on no-hitters by Angel pitchers. Bo Belinsky had a no-hitter right here. Tomorrow, John Lackey and Derek Lowe, the final game of the series. Jeff Mathis, meanwhile, draped on the railing, thinking about that throw into center field. Pierre way out in front of that, 1-2. When the Angels come up in the 9th inning, they have Torrey Hunter, Casey Kotchman, and Howie Kendrick. Got him. So all Arredondo has done, he's faced 5 batters, and he has struck out 3 of the 5.
Dodger right fielder, number 60, Andre.
Down in the Dodger bullpen, Takashi Saito begins to loosen up. He was unbelievable last night. After Broxton struck out all 3, Saito came in and struck out all 3. There is Ethier, walk, grounded to short, fly to right. $55,784 sitting in on a treasure. Ball 2. Jared Weaver pitching a no-hitter, went out for a pinch hitter in the 7th inning. Now we have 2 out in the 8th. The Dodgers still looking for a hit, but leading 1-0. That's a strike. Jose Arredondo from San Pedro de Macorís. Fouled away. 2-2. Good fastball. Arredondo hits 94. So no wonder when he was a shortstop, they said he threw like Sean Dunston. Dunston had as strong an arm as I've ever seen at short. 2-2. Fouled away. On deck, Russell Martin. Dodgers 1 run, no hits, 2 errors. The Angels no runs, 4 hits, 2 errors. Two and two to Andre. And a fly ball to left, going back on it. Anderson reaches up and almost casually picks it off. Boy, you talk about cool, but cool has turned to cold for the Angels as Takashi Saito comes in trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead. The totals tell most of the story. They don't tell you about Ibar's broken bad double and the great throw by Ethier to nail him at second base. They don't tell you about the diving stop by James Loney with Guerrero at first in the 4th inning. They don't tell you about the running catch by Andre Ethier on the ball hit by Howie Kendrick. They don't tell you about Jared Weaver's error, the stolen base, the throwing error by Jeff Mathis. No, all they tell you is the Dodgers lead 1-0 without a hit. The last time the Dodgers were no hit here, they lost. That would be April the 18th, 1994 against Atlanta. Kent Mercker did the job. Final score in that game, the Braves 6 and the Dodgers nothing. So Takashi Saito driving Torrey to drink as we go to the 9th. Not only is he asked to protect a 1-0 lead, this crowd of 55,000 would like to see him shut him down completely so that the Dodgers could win on a no-hitter. 0-1. Torrey Hunter struck out in the 2nd inning, hit a comebacker to the box for a force play, and struck out in the 6th. All 3 at-bats were against Billingsley. 0-1. Slider. That's what you get. Fastballs and sliders. A rare curveball. Last night he struck out Ibar, Kendrick, and Henderson. Anderson in the 9th inning. 0-2. Slider. Well, that didn't take long. 3 pitches to nail Torrey. 10 Angels have struck out tonight. 12 Angels struck out last night. 22 strikeouts. And the batter now is Casey Kotchman. Kotchman struck out, robbed of the hit by Loney, and singled to left field in the 7th inning. Ball 1. Seen a few games. I have never seen one like this. That's a strike. Saito with a strikeout has 46 strikeouts and walked 10. Breaking ball, a hopper, smothered by Mazza to get him. Luis Mazza making the play in relief of Jeff Kent, and the Angels are down to their last out. That looked like a sure base hit. Big play. And now this crowd sitting in on history. Well, Mazza makes a jam. Howie Kendrick has singled to center, grounded to short, flied out to right center, and everybody getting up. Breaking ball for ball 1. How many times crowds have stood and roared as a pitcher was pitching a no-hitter. This is in reverse. This is Alice in Wonderland. We've just gone through the mirror. 1-1. Even for veterans, hard to believe. 1-2. Sliders down, occasional fastball. 55,784, seeing one of the rarest of the rare. Hit down the line, slicing foul back into the stands. Kendrick still there. Mike Napoli, the catcher, on deck. Mike Scioscia has used Matthews and Figgins to hit. There it is for all the world to see. 1 run on no hits. Fastball just off the plate. The whole crowd groaning on that one. Whoa. 2-2. Eric Stokes. Big grin on his face. No smile from Boa. He wanted that pitch. Billingsley watching. Fouled the breaking ball back. Crowd mesmerized by the drama. And one to follow tomorrow. John Lackey, Derek Lowe, Izturis, Ibar, Scioscia, all of the Angels hanging on every pitch. 2-2. Fastball, foul back. So Kendrick hanging tough, hitting .309. Kendrick's had about 145 plate appearances, and he has struck out 24 times. Still 2-2. And a line drive base hit. Not only a base hit, he will certainly go for 2 on Pierre, and the throw will go into third, and this one isn't over yet. Howie Kendrick comes up with a clutch double to put runner at second. Kendrick is 2 for 4, and Saito now will be facing Mike Napoli. The Kendrick stayed right on it, pitched down, and doubles to left. Mike Napoli finishing up for Jeff Mathis, and Napoli hitting only .206, and Billingsley dying inside, I'm sure. And ball 1. That was quite an at-bat for Howie Kendrick. It was an 8-pitch at-bat, and he just hung in there and then doubled. Napoli out of Hollywood, Florida. 6-footer, 210, 27 years old. Fastball. Napoli in his 3rd year with the Angels. Previous 2 years he hit .228, .247. Billingsley this close to winning 3 in a row. Fastball in the dirt. 2-1. On deck will be Reggie Willits. He would hit for Arredondo. They also serve who only stand and wait. Hiroki Kuroda right alongside of Billingsley. Torrey, knowing that Arizona's already won. 2-1. Time. Napoli has trimmed down a bit. He lost a good 15 pounds from the beginning of last year. Ball 3. Three and one. And he walked him. So Napoli draws a walk. You knew it, didn't you? I mean, the way things have been going tonight, you knew it was not going to be a 1-2-3 ninth inning. No way. And now Honeycutt has gone out to talk to Saito. 2 on, 2 out, and Reggie Willits coming up, a switch hitter, hitting only 169. He'll hit left-handed, where he's batting 184. So it is Reggie Willits, who is a pretty patient hitter. Last year, he averaged 4.4 pitches per at-bat. Now that makes him a little tough, despite the very low batting average. Not much as a pinch hitter either. He's from Chickasha, Oklahoma, lives in Fort Cobb. That's pretty close to Binger, Oklahoma. And Binger will forever be known as the hometown of Johnny Bench. So Billingsley with 2 on, 2 out, leading 1-0. The Angels, with runners in scoring position, are 0 for 8 since they've been shut out up to tonight. And now he's going to take and get into the count. Oh, it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's really great. Well, maybe not if you're Billingsley. At second, Kendrick. At first, Napoli. 2 out. 1 ball and 1 strike. Last year, Willits hit 293, had an on-base percentage of 391. He was a dazzling rookie. 1-1. Breaking ball, curveball for a strike. A beautiful evening, but you get the feeling everybody's sweating. 1 and 2. So he averages better than 4 pitches in at bat. Unbelievable. Reggie Willits strikes out. 2 strikeouts for Saito, and the Dodgers win a game without a hit. Leave it to the Dodgers. For Chad Billingsley, who turned in a terrific 7. His record is now 7-7. He has won in 1 lifetime with the Angels, and for the second time in his career, he's won 3 in a row. Disillusioned Angel Ball Club blanked 2 nights in a row, but the ignominy of losing to a ball club that did not even get a hit. 1 run, no hits, and 2 errors for the Dodgers. No runs, 5 hits, and 2 errors for the Angels. The Dodgers now have won 3 of the 5 meetings, and the time of this very memorable game, 2 hours and 34 minutes. And remember the play that Luis Mazza made, taking the base hit away from Casey Kotchman in the 9th inning. And the Dodgers hang on and win it. We will be back. Dodgers beat the Angels 1-0 despite not getting a hit. The Elias Statistical Bureau in New York says that it is technically not a case where the Dodgers have been no hit because they didn't have a 9th inning at bat. However, to 55,784, all they know is they saw the Dodgers win a game without a hit. How did they do it? Well, let's take a look at the plays of the game. In the 5th inning, Kemp hit a little roller like a runaway gyroscope. Weaver should have made the play and failed to pick it up. Then Kemp not only stole second, but the throw left the area code and sent Kemp to third, to which fly ball got Kemp home despite a great effort by Guerrero. And then the Dodgers had to hang on in the 9th inning. Casey Kotchman hits a sure base hit, but not to Luis Mazza, who throws him out. And what made that a huge play, the fact that Howie Kendrick then came up and doubled to left. And the Dodgers then, after walking Napoli, had Willett strike out, and they won going away 1-0. For the Dodgers, they remain 2.5 games behind Arizona, and tomorrow the final game of the series. Since the Dodgers won last night and tonight, it means they have won the series. The last time the Angels lost a road series, it was in Tampa Bay on May 9th, 10th, and 11th. They had won 10 out of 12 of the last interleague series. So tomorrow on KCAL 9 again, that should be a dandy. John Lackey and Derek Lowe. Hope you'll be out here with us. And for all of us, to all of you, wherever you may be, have a very pleasant good evening.